Hello YouTube world, welcome back to the workshop. After I did the cherry bowl 2 or 3 weeks ago, I started looking around. I've got so many shelves and hidey holes where I've stuck wood, and I've started having a bit of a sort out, and I found this. Now, I think it's a piece of oak, although going by that bark on there, I wouldn't swear to that. But it feels pretty heavy, feels pretty dense. Grain pattern looks like it. The other thing is, if you can see, there's quite a big crack through there, and there's quite a big crack through there. But none of them come through to the top, none of them seem to come. Oh, there's that one there, we might have to address that later on. But although that's only sawn and it's not very clear, there's some beautiful grey pattern coming through there. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to put it on the lathe, see how badly cracked it is. If there are too many cracks in it, I'll just delete the video. But if we can address them, and I think, judging by the grain pattern on the top of there, that this will be quite a pretty piece. Just get it on the lathe, let's turn some wood. So I did take this piece of wood and put it back on the bandsaw, because one side of it's really tapered away to nothing. Very little would have ended up with a very shallow bowl. So at the risk of making it a little bit smaller, I can make the bowl a little bit deeper. I'm inspecting these cracks. I was quite worried about pieces come flying off, but on inspection, the cracks don't actually look that deep. None of them seem to carry all the way through. I think I would have had to. I've been quite dubious about turning this otherwise, because otherwise there'd be chunks of wood come flying off always, and I don't need a bowl that bad. So, as I say, give it a quick look at it, put it on there, turned it down a little bit smaller, so now we're ready to turn. So what I've started doing now is I'm just using one of my gouges, made sure it was nice and sharp, just using a series of pull strokes here, just to take the bowl down, get a nice shape. You can see on this at the moment there are a lot of odd angles to this. It was just a matter of being patient and working my way through with a chisel and just taking it down. Here I'm going in, I'm just forming the tenon, so very shortly I'll turn this bowl around and I can start turning the inside. So as you can see, I'm just continuing now with the defining the outside of the bowl. And I have to say, oak does turn. It is a very hard wood, but it does turn well, as long as you keep your tools sharp. You get a very nice finish off it. Turns well, nice to turn. So you can see now I've nearly got this down to the shape that I require. Just continuing with the pull strokes. Well, let's turn all the outer bark away. I'm left with some quite big cracks in there. Now, what to do? There's a lot of cracks in there, isn't there? So what I've done with this, I've left it overnight, and there are some quite big cracks in there, and I'm mad whether to actually fill them or just scrap it. I think it's such a lovely piece of wood. There's such lovely grain running through there. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill it. So I'm going to use a 2-part epoxy resin and brass metal filler, which is just very fine filings, like the dust. I'll mix it both together with the epoxy resin and then just fill the gaps. And this is set in 5 minutes, so it's very quick. So first thing I'm going to do is just clean out all the some mess down through there, so I've got a nice clean open crack to fill. That's just an old scrap block of plywood. And a little bit of this. Let's mix that in first. So we have in there, for people who don't know, they call that 2-part. One's a hardener, one's a glue. And as soon as you mix them together, chemical reaction starts taking place. And you buy that glue with, that's, I think I said that's a 5-minute set, and you buy it with 15-minute set. All sorts of different setting times on them. Alright, so here's a bowl. It's quite a deep crack. It's taken a lot more in there than I thought it would. So hopefully when I cut the inside of the bowl, I won't have to fill the inside as well. Hopefully there should be enough of that run down through. We're getting there. Well, I turned smoke yesterday. Forgot to clean the bed of my lathe. How quickly that's rusted that. Oh, you YouTubers, I filled them all up. You see all that? That's the epoxy resin and brass. And what I'm going to do is I'll just sand all of that off by hand. What I say by hand, what I mean is I'm going to put a sanding pad in a drill and take that off. I don't want to run my chisel over there because at the end of the day that is, and that will rip a chisel to pieces. So I've got a coarse sanding pad. I think that's better. I'll just sand it off. As you see, it doesn't take very much to take that all off. This was the biggest crack. That did take quite a bit of filling. Finish that all off, I'll get back to you. So I've gone through with my pad in the drill and I've taken all the excess filler off, and now I'm just going to sand up through the grits and sand the bowl right down. I started off with a 80 grit because the circular sanding pad does leave circular scratch marks. There were some quite bad scratch marks on there, so I've just stopped the lathe and locked it, and I'm actually sanding with the grain of the wood just to try and remove any of the scratches. So now it's just a matter of really working up through the grits. As you see, I've got some 180, 320, some 400 and 600 grit I'll be using. And now that's all sanded down, I've now got the sand and sealer, which is a bit that I enjoy because it always shows grain off to its best effect. You can also see the brass filler, that's bringing that out more. And you see when I turn that, it just catches a light. You see the gold flecks in there. I don't think it's real gold, but there's gold flecks in there that really shows it off. It's a really nice effect. On top of this, I'm using the Hampshire gold embellishing wax. Gives it a really nice effect because the gold flecks will sit down in the grain, and as you turn it through the light, it should just pick up those gold flecks. So what with the bronze or the brass inlay, it should look very pretty. So you just put this on exactly the same as you do with the ordinary wax. Just apply it all over, just rub it in, make sure it gets into all the grain, and then just spin the lathe up and just polish it up. I'm just going in there with the forcing a bit, just to make things a lot easier for myself, just to take the middle out. Rather than nice chip-ins, and a lot of dust in there. It tells me that tool needs sharpening. And you see all these cracks, they come through. One's partially filled already. That is that one. Big one through there. Big one up through there. So what I'm going to do is take that off, fill them, sand it, and we'll get back to you. I'll get back to you and see the finished article. You already watched me filling cracks, you already watched me sanding, you don't need to watch me do it again. Here we go, YouTubers. I've filled it all with brass again and epoxy resin. I'm just going to go and sand it all down again. Well, that's it all cleaned up. I'm just going to quickly give it a quick sanding. It's all done, very nice, sand sealer. It's a bit, I love it, really brings that grain out. Lovely shine on that already. And I'll use the gold embellishing wax on the outside. Might as well use it on the inside as well. So there's the finished article. That's oak. With bronze infill. And finished with a gold embellishing wax. Really nice piece of wood. So here we go, YouTube world. Another project. I do like that. It feels really nice in the hands. Lovely and smooth finish. Beautiful streaks of gold running through there with the brass. That brass inlay. Oak is very hard to turn, but well worth it. There's a beautiful grain pattern running in there. That is really tactile, that bowl. Really nice to hold, really nice to make, and if I say so, really nice to look at. So there we go, YouTubers. Another project, all finished, done and dusted. As always, I've been Steve Howe, and this has most definitely been a really good day in my workshop. I'm really pleased with that.